Hi guys, it's the Native Redneck here, and I wanted to talk to you guys about how to trim out a window or a door today. So here's what we got going. So this is an older vinyl window, but it's still in good shape, so we're just going to go ahead and reuse it. The screen will need replaced, it's rusted out, but other than that, it's a good window. So in this situation here, what you want to do is cut your first piece will be your bottom here, and what it'll be is you hook the edge of your window and you pull all the way to the other edge, and that's your first piece right here. As you can see, I've already put it on. Then once you have that piece on, and what I like doing is I set 2 nails staggered every 2 feet or so. On a window, typically, you know, the center is right here, so I'll put a couple right in the center and then on each edge. Like I was telling you guys before in the videos, I stay way off my ends, that way it doesn't split the board anywhere. I like to stay off of these weep holes too, because they kind of always have water coming out of them, so that way no water's getting in through any nail holes through there. Then what I'll do is I'll do my sides, so you'll hook the edge of your trim down here to get that measurement, and you'll go all the way up to the top of your window like I did here, and it'll be flush up top. On both sides you'll do the same thing, hook the bottom, come up flush on the top, right? And then that gives you your last piece here, which is your top. You hook that edge of the trim and measure to this edge of the trim, and then you put your top on. And same thing on the nail patterns down the side. Usually what I'll do with trim is every 2 feet I'll put 2 nails. So that's pretty much how you trim out a window. I'll go ahead and put this top on and show you what it looks like done. So there's a couple steps I wanted to explain to you guys how to do that I kind of skipped by there on this trim. So what you want to do, I'll show you with the slider here. So this is how it's all prepped up like we showed you before. What you want to do is put a bead of caulking all the way down this edge on this trim before you put it on. It's like I was showing you here on the window. So I caulked it before I put this trim on. So that's one tip, because what you want is there'll be a little gap here because windows are bowed and didn't get set right sometimes, and so any water that does go through there, you don't want it to penetrate into your wall. You want it to get blocked by that caulking, and then it'll just come right out your trim down here. So that's one tip for this. And then the other thing I was going to show you guys is on these windows and doors, a lot of the time this edge is pretty sloppy on them. And so what I do is I'll take my knife and I'll trim them up. I'll just cut, you know, any of that excess that's hanging off over the edge where it's a nice smooth corner. And the reason you want to do that is because if you don't, your trim won't line up right and it'll look real sloppy. What you want, you know, is the trim nice and flush here, and no gaps. So that's how you keep from it, is just trim those corners. Every one of them, before I start, I'll go around and trim, make sure they're all nice and slicked up, flush to the window and not bulging out there. That really helps with trimming those out. Okay, so I have my top piece here. That's this one right here. It's kind of a cool piece. Anyway, so what you have to do on this top piece is you have to build a piece of flashing to go over the top of it. That's what I got right here is my inch flashing. So I'm gonna show you guys how to make one of these for the top of any of your trim. So give me a second. Okay, so I wanted to show you guys how I cut this metal. So what I typically do is I'll cut it about 3/8 to a 1/2 inch in on both these corners here. And then I'll take my pliers and I'll bend the front in and then the top down. And then I'll tighten it all up, make it look nice. And that's how you'll do one edge. And then I've done so many of these, I don't even measure them anymore. What I'll do is I'll take my piece of trim and I'll put it in there. And then I'll just go a little long on this side. Typically I'm shooting for about 1/2 inch past my trim when I do that. And then you'll just cut that thing to length and do the same thing on this side. They don't take much time at all to build, and it makes all the difference in the world on whether your trim holds up or not. And that's how I look on both sides. Top goes over. And they fit right on top like that. So any water that rolls down, your paper goes over your flashing, and then that water is forced to roll right off your trim so you don't have any water getting in. This is the most important part on waterproofing. Right here. Okay, so I wanted to show you guys how this top piece goes on. So like I told you with the sides and the bottom, what you do is you run a bead of caulking right along this top edge here, which is the same on the sides or the bottom. You want to seal this off from any water that goes in there penetrating in. And then you'll take your trim set it on there, put it where it goes. Like I was telling you, anywhere you run into knots, you want to kind of stay away from those knots because it's real hard wood right there and it'll just bend your nails. What we use here is stainless ring shanks for our trim. That way they don't rust. and look sloppy. And sometimes you end up with little gaps, so you try to pull and tighten that stuff up as best you can. And then with this top piece of flashing, you'll do the same thing as you did on the bottom of that trim there, and you'll run a bead of caulking right down this edge again. And you'll set your flashing. Then on here, this is kind of a odd situation what we have going on here, because we're gonna have a ledger board up here with a deck. So what I'm gonna do from there is I'm gonna take another piece of either felt or some of this Fortiflash and go from the bottom of the ledger board with it over our flashing here. So any water that ends up right in this section here will flow out through our flashing. Because as you could tell right here, if I was just to set this and did nothing else, water would get down behind this flashing. So it's still not the final product here, but this will show you guys what you need to do in order to set these windows correctly, the trim on them. Thanks for watching. Okay, so I got this thing the way it should be when you guys are finished. It doesn't have to look exactly like this. It could be straight paper, you know. This is just how it ended up working out right here with what we have going on. But what you want to do, you know, like I was telling you, we're going to have a ledger board up here with the deck coming off. So we'll just have a board, and then you'll caulk right up against that where your siding butts into it. But regardless of that, you want every layer over the one below it. So any water that gets into here just keeps coming down the wall, and then it'll hit this flashing on top of this trim here in half. It'll be forced to come out and over the face of this trim. So if you don't have this piece of metal here, and this is a reason a lot of trim fails and you have siding rot and problems everywhere, is because of this piece of metal right here. People don't go to the time and effort to put it on there, and that water rolls down and it hits this piece of trim and it goes right in behind there, and then it can't get out. So it goes down the wall and it hits the bottom, say like on a window there, and that's where your rot will start, or a door right at the bottom of it, and it'll rot everything below it. It's because of not going through all these steps and making sure to do this right. So if you guys have any questions or concerns about any of it, leave a comment. But all you got to do is go back through our videos and look. I've explained how to set the Fortiflash, how to do all of it. So this should help you guys save you some money and keep you from having any rot down the line on any of your trim, windows and doors.